Can we trust John Steenhuisen and the Democratic Alliance in South Africa? Really think about it. This is the party that calls itself the champion of a one South Africa for all. Yet time and again its actions scream something else. Today, we're digging into the DA's most controversial shifts and double dealings, and by the end, you might be slamming that like button out of sheer frustration. Why are so many South Africans angry at John Steenhuisen's DA? Let's break it down point by point. First, let's talk about how the DA has changed over time. If you've followed South African politics, you remember the DA of the 2000s and 2010s positioning itself as a non-racial, forward-looking alternative to the ANC. They even put forward Maimane, their first Black Party leader, to prove they were serious about diversity and transformation. But where did that lead? In 2019, after a disappointing election, Maimane resigned, angrily accusing party insiders of marginalizing Black leaders to preserve the DA for the white minority. Yes, you heard that right. The DA's first Black leader said people in his own party wanted to keep it as a club for white South Africans. And what did the DA do after he left? By 2020, they elected John Steenhuisen, a white man, as leader, prompting warnings from analysts that this move may cost the DA support from Black voters. Doesn't that sound like backtracking on their big promise of diversity? What happened to building a party for all South Africans? Under John Steenhuisen's watch, many say the DA has lurched back to its old comfort zone. Observers note the party has struggled to shake off its image as a party led by whites and is seen as mostly protecting interests of the white minority. In recent years, to avoid upsetting its white voter base, the DA soft-pedaled issues like land redistribution and Black economic redress, basically the very transformation South Africa needs after apartheid. Think about it. They've opposed policies like BE, Black economic empowerment, and affirmative action, framing everything in colorblind terms. Sure, equality sounds great on paper, but when you ignore racial inequality in a country scarred by apartheid, whose interests are you really serving? The DA, for instance, explicitly stated it would scrap BE policies entirely if it came to power. Is that truly about fairness or about keeping the economic status quo? Ask yourself, is the DA fighting for the marginalized or for those already at the top? Let's get even more provocative. Does the DA use Black people as pawns? Many critics believe the party parades Black leaders when convenient to win votes, but doesn't genuinely empower them or embrace what they stand for. The case of Maimane is a glaring example. He was the DA's poster child for change, until he wasn't. After he exited, something jaw-dropping came out. Former DA leader Tony Leon called Maimane an experiment gone wrong. An experiment. Can you imagine? That's how one of the DA's elder statesmen referred to their only Black leader, like he was some lab project that failed. If that doesn't boil your blood, consider Maimane's own response. He said Leon's remark was not only offensive but dehumanizing, a stark reminder of how Black leaders can be treated in a party that claims not to see race. Maimane noted that this kind of project of dehumanizing Black people in positions of power is nothing new. Doesn't it make you ask, was Maimane put in charge sincerely or just as a tactical front? Even within the DA, Leon's experiment comment caused outrage. Zwakel Mkwengo, then a prominent DA figure, said if Leon meant Maimane or any Black leader was just an experiment, I would take it as an offense to all Black leaders in the DA. It says we are not fit to lead.
Exactly.
It implies Black politicians are somehow second class in the DA, good enough to reel in votes, but not good enough to respect or listen to. Is that what the DA stands for now? Where was John Steenhuisen in all this? Did he strongly condemn Leon? Or was he uncomfortably quiet, hoping the storm would blow over? You be the judge. The message received by many South Africans was loud and clear. The DA's diversity talk rang hollow. And it's not just Maimane saga. Look at the pattern. Almost every high-profile Black leader in the DA has left or been pushed out. Remember Herman Mashaba, the businessman turned mayor of Johannesburg under the DA? He quit in 2019, saying, "The DA no longer represents a party that can achieve the change needed, and complaining of a faction in the DA that resisted the pro-poor, inclusive policies he championed. Or Fumzile Van Dam, a young black MP who was a fiery voice against disinformation. She suddenly resigned from Parliament in 2021, citing a lack of support and internal tensions. Pauline Tully, a rising black female leader who even challenged Steenhuisen for the leadership, eventually left the party too. And Patricia de Lille, a veteran colored politician and Cape Town's former mayor, was effectively forced out after a nasty fight. She now leads a different party. Are you seeing the trend? The DA seems to have a revolving door for its black leaders. Bring them in when useful for optics, ease them out when they challenge the inner circle's agenda. Is that how you build trust? No wonder public perception of the DA has soured. Even before the last local elections, people were openly questioning whether the DA represents the interests of black people at all. One media report bluntly summed it up. The DA has had one controversy after another, from black leaders' resignations to tone-deaf campaigns, and many now believe the party no longer cares about black communities. If you're a voter who supported the DA hoping for a more inclusive platform, how do you feel seeing this exodus of black talent? Do you still feel at home in the DA, or do you feel betrayed? Next, let's discuss something even more unsettling: the DA's dealings on the international stage, especially with the explosive issue of land expropriation without compensation. Land is an emotive topic in South Africa. It's about righting historical wrongs versus safeguarding economic stability. The ANC pushed forward a new expropriation bill, now in act, to allow land expropriation in the public interest, with just and equitable compensation and certain cases of no compensation. The DA has been fiercely opposed to this policy from day one. They've painted apocalyptic pictures of what land reform might do, warning about property rights and investor fear. That's their right. They even filed a court challenge to declare the Expropriation Act unconstitutional. But here's where things get shady. Did the DA take their fight beyond South Africa's borders? Reports suggest that elements of the DA, and certainly their close allies in the fight, like lobby group AfriForum, have been feeding the narrative of land grabs to foreign audiences, especially in the USA. Let's recall 2018. AfriForum representatives flew to the US to drum up alarm about land expropriation and farm murders. Fast forward to late 2024 and 2025, that narrative exploded internationally. Former US President Donald Trump, now running for office again, jumps in. He tweets that South Africa is taking away land and threatens to cut off US aid over this issue. Suddenly, South Africa's domestic policy is a global topic, and the US is considering punitive action. Now ask yourself, who lit that fire under Trump? It turns out AfriForum proudly took credit. They'd lobbied Trump's team, pushing claims that the Expropriation Act would take land by force from white owners. They basically portrayed our government as a pack of thieves targeting white farmers. This was misinformation, as the act doesn't allow arbitrary seizures, but it was catnip for a certain audience. The result? Trump announces a halt to critical aid programs like the PEPFAR HIV/AIDS funding, pending an investigation. Think about the consequences: a foreign power penalizing South Africa based on a skewed story, and ordinary South Africans potentially suffering. PEPFAR provides life-saving treatment to millions. That's outrage enough. But here's where the DA's trust issue comes in. How did John Steenhuisen and the DA react? Remember, the DA hates the Expropriation Act. They voted against it and vowed to fight it tooth and nail. Steenhuisen even threatened to pull out of the coalition government, GNU, over this bill, declaring a dispute with the ANC on the matter. The party brands the law as a step toward unconstitutional land grabs. Yet, the moment Washington's wrath loomed, John Steenhuisen did a complete U-turn. The DA suddenly rushed to play peacemaker. John Steenhuisen publicly clarified to the US that the act does not actually allow uncontrolled land seizures and that it requires fair compensation. The DA put out statements basically defending the logic of the act it had been denouncing, saying it is not true that government can just grab land arbitrarily, and calling it unfortunate that people misportrayed the law. In other words, the DA leadership told the truth about the act's safeguards, but only when the truth suited them, to calm down the Americans.